It's another afternoon. Hello and welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. We are on your digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. You can catch us live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. This is Joy News, independent, fearless and credible journalism. This afternoon, industrial action of colleges of education non-teaching staff begins to bite hard with some colleges on the verge of closure. We'll run some checks across the country and speak to leadership of the association. And also this afternoon, Electricity Company of Ghana halts its intended exercise to cut power supply to over 31 institutions, including Parliament House, in spite of reports that these agencies collectively owe ECG some 70 million cedis. We hear from the experts on this matter. And we are also making a special focus on this. We're tracking the gains of the Ghana Post Company Limited. 100 days after President Akufo-Addo appointed a new managing director. Obor will be my guest here on The Pulse. Don't forget that my name is Blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignity Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. This afternoon, we're streaming live on YouTube, and all of our social media handles is at JoyNews on TV. Don't forget to tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Blessed Sogah. Always a pleasure serving you here on The Pulse. Please stay. Well, so here's what we've been tracking for you this afternoon. It's been 24 hours since non-teaching staff of the colleges of education withdrew their services nationwide in protest of what they described as government's failure to improve their conditions of service, despite signing a memorandum of understanding in 2020. The impact of this industrial action is beginning to bite hard, with some of the colleges on the verge of closure. On your screens now, you have a copy of the statement released by the colleges of education, the non-teaching staff association. Portions of the statement right now you have on your screens, and I'll just read that to you. And it reads that pursuant to our release referred, and the indication of the number is there on the above subject dated 8th of April 2022, the leadership led by His Excellency Jonathan has continuously engaged all the stakeholders to see an end to this issue. There is some level of assurance that a meeting shall be convened as soon as possible to get the issue resolved, as well as some measures to put in place in various colleges to ensure that the continuation of academic work goes on for all trainees. Now, the statement continues to indicate that, however, after the engagement with local TTAG, and this is actually a statement we need to indicate coming through from the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana. They are also speaking on this matter about how it's biting hard on them. TTAG is actually indicating that as executives, they have engaged the national leadership and they have received some concerns on what is happening. And the first point here is that some of the students in the colleges have been asked to feed themselves until the strike is over. So that's the shocking one we're receiving now. And in some of the colleges as well, the absence of staff in the kitchen has actually forced some of the students to partly suspend their academic work to support the casual work that's going on campus. So these are some of the indications we're getting as to how hard the strike of non-teaching staff across all the colleges in the country is biting hard. So let's broaden the conversation here on The Pulse for you. Joining me now on Zoom is a host of individuals who have been monitoring this. First of all, Professor Mohammed Salifu is the Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. He's joining us to help us understand what has been done by the Commission to resolve this challenge. Jonathan Junu is the National President of the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana, TTAG, also releasing a statement which I brought to you earlier. And then we have Frederick Fojo Yeboah, who's the National President of the Colleges of Education Non-Teaching Staff Association of Ghana. Larry K. Agbado is also the editor for the Colleges of Education Weekly Journal. So let me start off with you, Fojo, because obviously this has got to do with your group. I'm wondering what is necessitating this strike at this moment, particularly when we know that government is just moving out of engagements with your colleagues in the universities across the country.
Thank you. This is an issue that has been lingering on for quite too long. we didn't want it to end up this way. But fortunately, as a result of the appropriate authorities being hesitant, it has ended this way.
Frederick, we're having difficulties hearing you, but the point I hear you making is that you regret to take this action. However, it's based on a number of concerns. So share some of these concerns with us and explain to us why you're deciding to go ahead with your industrial action.
Yeah, like we said in the community, the first issue has to do with our first degree holders who are placed on level 16.
Okay.
Compared to analogous institution in the tertiary, where first degree holders with the same experience are placed at 17 high. In fact, since 2016, we've been engaging authorities to understand the fact that we have been shortchanged when it comes to first degree holders payment in the College of Education. And it has not yielded any results for us. And the second issue has to do with payment of migration arrears. When in 2016, we were elevated from GES to the Tertiary. Some of us, we had an appreciation in salaries, which the government was to pay us migration arrears. Unfortunately, the update, nothing has been received. Our teaching counterpart has received theirs around 2019. And the third issue has to do with payment of generic allowance. Like generic allowance.
And Frederick, I need to say that intermittently I'm losing you. I need to hear the points that you're making. The last point you're making is about the salary for January. Explain clearly to us what's happening to that. We also need to understand and follow so we can get the matters addressed. So we'll try and reconnect with Frederick Foko-Yeboah, who's the National President of the Colleges of Education non-teaching staff. In fact, they have served notice that they are withdrawing their services. In fact, it's taking effect as we speak. So there's a need for us also to check what's happening on the campuses for you. We'll do that shortly. But let me hear also from Professor Mohammed Salifu, who is the Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. Prof, so here we are. We've not been able to get the full extent to which the non-teaching staff are, in terms of the concerns that they have, the full extent they wish to go in demanding a resolution of their concerns. But I'm sure that you are aware of what's happening to them, their conditions of service, and what the challenge is. From where you sit right now at your desk, do you have any solutions in the offing that you can assure these people of? Professor Salifu, if you're with us, I'm asking whether or not at your desk you have any information on the concerns of the group and what you're doing to solve it. So we'll get Professor Salifu for you. Jonathan Juno is also the National President for the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana. In fact, they are feeling the pinch of what's happening. They've just indicated to you that some of their colleagues are unable to get their meals from the dining halls. But let's find out from Jonathan how bad the situation is. Jonathan, if you can hear me, share with us your concerns as students and how you feel this activity is affecting you or impacting on campus.
Thank you very much. As we speak right now, the situation is very terrible on the various campuses. We've gotten to the stage where level 100s are writing their exams, and then CENSAC is embarking on strike, which means that the students will go into the examination hall without food. And then the level 300s who are on campus are also facing the same challenge. The students are being asked to go and feed on their own. How would they feed on their own? How would they feed on their own? Allowances have not been paid for a very long time now, 7 months in arrears. So where would the student get the money from to go and feed themselves? And let me also put this on record that it has even gotten to the stage where some students would have to go to the kitchen themselves to prepare food. It's very bad. It's very bad.
In which of the colleges are you getting these reports from?
Come again, please.
In which of the colleges are you getting this report from that is gotten to the extent that students have to go and prepare their meals themselves?
Oh, yes. If you go to Baga, for instance, I was told reliably that at the point the students have to go and help some of the kitchen hands over there for them to prepare their food. And I think we shouldn't get to this stage. We shouldn't get to this stage. And set places, I was equally informed that students were called to meeting and were informed that we've gotten to the stage where you would have to bring some money so that we can get people to come and prepare food for us. Where would they get the money from? And on that, we are very clear on that point that no student should pay any money. The students are not in the position to hire anyone to come and cook. So they shouldn't pay.
From the statement that you,
They shouldn't pay.
yeah, from the statement that you've issued, it appears that it's not just a concern about food, but also academic activities is being affected on campus. How bad is the situation?
It's very terrible. Like I said earlier, it's very terrible. And we think that leadership must act as soon as possible to get the issue resolved. If not, the calendar will be distorted, which means that everything will just end. You see it. Leadership should act as early as possible to get the issues resolved.
The statement that you issued, and I'll be coming to the other stakeholders online with us, but Jonathan, the statement that you issued, you clearly stated that you've been engaging leadership of SENSAC and some other stakeholders as well on the matter. What reactions are you getting from them on a possible return if that would happen anytime soon?
Yes. What I heard from SENSAC until the issues are resolved. And the other stakeholder I spoke to, they gave that meetings will be organized as soon as possible to make sure that the issues are resolved. But I think it's delaying. Looking at the urgency of the situation, actions must be taken now. Action must be taken now. I was going to the market this afternoon and I met some students. I asked them where they were going and they told me they are going to look for food. Students that are supposed to be in classroom are now moving into the market to look for food. You see how terrible the situation has become. And I think that if something is there, it should be done now, as early as possible.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking what you were told by SENSAC and also the various authorities that supervise your campuses.
From SENSAC, they are not coming back until their issues are resolved. And then when I spoke with someone from Fair Wages, they told me they have plans in place to meet SENSAC as early as possible. But my question is, how soon would that be? How soon would that be? We were expecting that even today, there should have been a meeting today. Because SENSAC sent a signal for some days now. And we knowing how serious the issue, a meeting should have been organized today.
Right. Jonathan, just stay with us because we'll come back to you. This is just the start of the conversation. In fact, Larry K. Agbado is also editor of the college news as well. He's been following matters there as well. So, Larry, just help us understand what's happening. You've been receiving reports as well, and you've been hearing from SENSAC. What do you gather is the case across the various colleges of education?
Thank you very much, my brother Wisdom, and good afternoon to colleague panels on the show. The situation in the colleges, I'm currently in the north, and the situation in the colleges in the north, it's not something so good to see. When you get to most of these colleges, you may have the feeling or the thinking that these colleges are on break, but that's not the situation. The SENSAC members are actually on strike, and these are people who have that they have not been treated fairly when it comes to the colleges of education setup. They feel that other stakeholders such as TTAC, Brinkhoff, and others are giving more attention as compared to their case. And you see, we have people who are SENSAC members who are taking just their basic salary for years without any motivation. We have a situation with the TTAC side where we have a lot of tutors who are moving to the traditional universities. In the few months to come or years to come, if we're not careful, we are likely to experience the same situation with SENSAC members also moving from the colleges of education to other institutions because they're not being treated fairly. So, and you see, until we appreciate the situation they are going through, this is what we are going to say. The colleges currently are not in the best of shape. As I speak, 3 levels or 2 levels are currently home. We have only a level, I think level 100 and level 200 on campus now because there's no space to accommodate everyone.
Right.
And they start going on strike also. That means that after 1 or 2 weeks, if government doesn't come in to intervene, we are likely to witness the situation where the colleges might be closed down, as you said in your introductory remarks.
Right.
So basically, I think it's time they are also giving the needed. It's bad we have to come to this extent where they are going on strike before we have to start listening to them or taking their issues serious. The situation across the colleges, I think the TAC president rightly said, this morning I went to some of the colleges and you see students sharing banku for their colleagues to eat. And these are students that their numbers are huge. You go to the various libraries in the colleges and there's no one to attend to you. You go to the administration block and there's absolutely nothing going on there.
Right.
The places look virtually empty. So this is the situation on the ground. And
Interesting reports you're getting there, Larry. Fortunately, Professor Mohammed Salifu, Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, is joining us. So let's see if we'll get some clarity on matters here. Prof, thank you for your time. So are you aware of the concerns of SENSAG and what's your commission doing to try and resolve the matters? Prof, if you can hear me, I'm asking about, you would have to unmute for us first of all, so we are able to hear you. But I was asking if you have that information on your desk as to whether or not SENSAG has a concern, and what are you doing to address it? Professor Salifu, you'd have to unmute for us so we can hear you. So we seem to be still having a challenge getting through to Professor Salifu, but Jonathan is still with us. So Jonathan, Larry was just telling us earlier about some of your colleagues selling food on campus, and we know that it goes way beyond that. So Jonathan, if you can hear me, what will be your next line of action in trying to demand answers? Are we likely to see some activities on the student front just to mount pressure for results?
Thank you very much. I think that our first step is a release that we've sent out there. The second one we'll be doing is to make sure we meet the stakeholders one-on-one and then sit with them. If we get to this stage and nothing is done, then leadership will have to take some bold decisions, because we cannot allow the student to be on campus and be starving. We can't allow our student to be on campus and be starving. So when it becomes clear that there is no attention coming, leadership will have to take the bold decision. And let me also put this on record that I've had a chance to serve as an SRC president for 2 years. During that period, I've visited the kitchen for times, and I know how difficult it is for the women who work at the kitchen, the people who work at the kitchen. Some of them come to work at 3 a.m. They close late in the night, 8 p.m. They are not paid overtime. So if they are out with their issues, I think that attention should be given to them as early as possible.
Right.
For me, since I came to college, this is the first time I've heard that SENSAG is going on strike. It means that they've kept it for long. You see.
What do you suspect some of their concerns anyway?
I think
yeah.
the release out there, they've mentioned a lot of things.
I mean beyond the release, because you have said that you've never seen this happen on campus before.
Yes.
Yes. So
yes.
So that's why I'm asking about beyond the statement, the official statement. You feel that genuinely their situation, their conditions of service is not proper?
Yes, I strongly believe so. I strongly believe so. And let me also mention. Hello? Yes. Let me also mention this, that the decision where students were asked to bring money on board was simply because there is no money in the colleges. The principals are equally suffering. The principals are equally suffering. If you ask them, well, I don't know why they are not able to come out to say, but I know they are equally suffering, because they will tell you that feeding grant is not coming, we've exhausted our reserves, and we don't have anything. They are equally suffering. For 7 months now, allowance have not been paid. So how will the student take care of themselves? How will the principals feed the students? How? For 7 months. And I have been informed that the Minister of Education has done everything possible for the allowance to be paid, but there is some delay from the Ministry of Finance. And that's, we are finding it very difficult to understand why there should be delay.
So what may be even complicating the matters right now is that although you could have made up for what's happening on campus now with the stipends that you receive, the situation is now worse because you don't have your allowances for the past 7 months. How come you've been silent on that for all this while? Okay, so we have 4 months for that's 2020-2021 academic year. By then there was a leadership in place. So they've handed over to us, and then we are now continuing. So this is our year. This is the 2021-2022 academic year. But then there've been arrears before we came into office. So government is not paying teacher trainee allowances any longer for the past 7 months?
Yes, for the past 7 months, 4 months for 2020-2022, 2020-2021 academic year, and then 3 months for 2021-2022 academic year. And what is even making it very difficult for us as trainees to understand the whole thing is the fact that, you know, when allowance was cancelled some years back, and we were fighting the whole system why allowance was cancelled, we had support from government, then in opposition. They support us. So we don't understand why they are in power now, and then the situation is becoming worse for us.
And not to digress, but these are critical points that you're raising right now. Are you certain that payments have not been made? And what exactly are the authorities telling you about this?
For now, we've not heard anything. We've not heard anything. And I am certain that as the national president, I can speak on authority that payments have not been made. We are hoping that from Thursday, there will be some engagement with our stakeholders, and then we will put issues on the table once again so that we will get to hear something.
Are you likely to go on a demonstration in demand of your stipends?
As leadership, in making sure that our issues are heard, we have all options on the table. For us, we have a lot of options on the table in making sure our demands are met.
And indeed, this is just complicating matters the more. Let me bring in Frederick at this time because he speaks for Sensat, so he kind of understands what's happening. Frederick, so earlier you were telling us about the January payment, the salaries which have not been released by the ministry. You've been engaging the ministry some more on your matters. Have you made any progress as of now, and why is there a deadlock on just trying to resolve all of these matters? Frederick, if you can hear me, kindly unmute so we can get the point you're making. The point about the salaries not being paid and how there's a deadlock between your side and government, your employer.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Frederick, just make your points.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much. Let me make a correction here.
Okay.
It's not about January salaries.
Okay.
Generic allowance.
Oh, okay, so you're referring to allowances not being paid as of January. Okay, right.
So, generic allowance car maintenance allowance, motorbike and bicycle allowance, rent allowance, owner-occupier allowance, overtime, tools and height allowance, and other allowances. That we are saying that the tutors or our teaching counterparts have been paid since 2021. And to date, none of these allowances has been paid to the non-teaching staff.
Right.
And we felt that it's discriminatory, and we want authorities to take us serious when it's come to welfare of the non-teaching staff.
In fact, I was having challenges hearing you earlier, and I'm glad that you've been able to correct all of this. So it's about generic allowances, and that includes quite a lot. The feeling is that looking at the current economic positioning that we have, we may not be able, or government may not be able to release the fundings to you, given what's happening, for instance, to UTAG and some other groups as well. Are you hopeful that something at least will come through for you?
Will you be okay when you are in a family of two and you need the same thing, and your father provided for the other one and leaves you behind? What happened? Anytime your other sibling requests for anything, the father provides. What will happen? there wouldn't be peace in the family.
Are you having a feeling? Are you having a feeling that government is not being fair to your group, Sensag? Particularly, you're comparing yourselves to university teachers. Are you saying that there's a bias on the part of government and, by extension, the Ministry of Education on this matter?
Not university teachers, but colleges of education teachers. I mean, there should be some form of non-biased when it comes to treating staff of colleges of education. This is what we are calling for, that the way we have been treated is worrying. For the past 6 years, we have been shortchanged when it comes to first degree holders placement, when it comes to migration arrears, when it comes to the payment of generic allowance, and then payment of interim market premium arrears. We have been shortchanged, and our colleagues, counterparts, teaching counterparts, are being paid.
How long do you intend to hold on with this approach that you're taking, the industrial action? How many days are we likely to see this? Because already it's biting hard on campuses across the country. Are you mindful of that?
Until we hear something positive from the government.
You're not going back until government makes effect payments?
Until we hear something positive from the government. I think the TAG president said that when you go to the kitchen, some of these women, they wake up at dawn around 2 to 3 a.m. Even when it's during exams, they have to come and sleep at the kitchen to make sure that these students are well fed. From 2016, no overtime allowance has been paid to a woman in the kitchen. No allowance, no overtime allowance. The drivers that drives our principals around all over the country at dawn, at night, no overtime allowance has been paid to them for the past 6 years.
Okay, let's get some answers, Frederick. Just hold on. We'll try one more time just to do this. Professor Mohammed Salifu is the Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Council. Thank you, sir, for joining us. This time around, he's on phone. So the confirmation is out there. CENTAC says they will not return to the colleges of education across the country until you resolve their concerns. Do you, first of all, know about their concerns, and what are you doing to resolve this?
I'm surprised they will say that they will not return until their concerns are resolved, because they should know that you cannot be on strike and have your concerns resolved. It's a simple, procedure governing labor relations. We have been engaged on these issues, and they know that we have made a lot of progress. In fact, GTEC in particular has been very, very sympathetic to the issues that they have raised. You would have seen from their press statement that they listed some 5 items. Out of those 5 items, there's only one that came up, which is relatively new. All those other 4, we have made significant progress about them. CENSAC, for example, knows about the wrong placement of first degree holders. That when they raised this point, GTEC was the first to support them. We made a recommendation to Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and Fair Wages indicated to them at the negotiating table that that was a matter that, based on GTEC's recommendations, they were going to look into that, and they needed up to the middle of March to validate what we have given them so that they can clear it. As we speak now, Fair Wages has obtained the information they want. They've addressed that. If CENSAC had been minded to attend the meeting we invited them to, they would have, had this feedback. And they knew that Fair Wages was making time to validate the request. So that is not an issue as we speak currently.
Yeah, but they claim that has lingered for quite some time now. And
it hasn't lingered for some time. You see, negotiations take time. And they were at the table with Fair Wages. And Fair Wages said, give us up to the middle of March to get this done. So it's a week or 2 after. So if it wasn't being done, at least come back and say, look, we made this commitment and we still haven't heard anything. Why is it? Then you get the update. That's my problem.
And at least you are in a privileged position now. What do you see in the offing? Are we likely to see payments, all payments being done and the arrears cleared? Is that what you're able to tell us or confirm to us now?
Yeah, so my point is that, you see, you can't walk away from the table and expect the resolution of the issues. You need to be at the table to do that. And you cannot be on strike when these things are being done.
Yeah, and Prof, I guess irrespective, sorry for cutting through, irrespective of walking away, industrial action, whatever the case may be, the action is biting hard on campus. And I guess what government or perhaps the commission would want to do is to ensure that academic activities resume smoothly.
Yes, I think you should be holding them to account too as well. We called them for a meeting when they issued this statement. I don't know if you have seen their statement. It wasn't even addressed to Labour Commission or to GTEC. It's a press statement they released, and they only copied us and said they were going on strike. We saw that and we called them for a meeting. All the other issues would have updated them on exactly where we were with the issues. But they said they were going to come next week or thereabout. You can't go on strike and, disrupt activities and then decide to take your time when you've been called to come and see where we have reached with the negotiations. It's not fair on us. It's not fair on the students either.
At least we've heard from the group, one of their reps is on with us. He talks about the concern of bias, the fact that you've been able, and I'm not just specifically referring to your outfit, government in its approach has been able to deal with issues of UTAG expeditiously. So why not do same for their group as well?
Yeah, because you see, it takes time and process to deal with it. We dealt with their CTAG, which is their UTAG equivalent in the colleges of education. And there are issues arising from CTAG negotiation which is applicable to them because they have senior members in their group which will have similar conditions as CTAG. As we speak, Minister of Finance has taken advice from us. They are issuing a letter to indicate, the extension of some of those conditions to the eligible officers. And they should know that this is a very simple procedure to verify. Come for the meeting if you feel frustrated that you are not making progress with the negotiations, and at least we would have updated you. It looks like people, I think the practice of unions, resorting to strike is not helpful. People need to understand that the only way you can solve the problem is at the table. It's not outside the table. When you walk away, by law, we are not supposed to engage you until you come back.
Right. Prof, would like to hold on briefly. Let's hear from the group as well as to why they're not turning up for the meetings. So, Frederick, you had the concerns there from the Tertiary Education Commission. It appears that you're not willing to dialogue, giving the account of the commission. Is that exactly the case?
Not exactly. When we received the letter, on Wednesday, that is 6th of April. And our national executive are across the country, some at Bagabaga, some at Takrade, some at Mampong, some also at Dambai. We are across the country. And organizing ourselves to come will take time. And at the moment, as I speak with you, the vice president is burying his father at Garu in the north. And this Thursday, and then also the national secretary is also having an exams, which from last week up to this week, he's having an exam. So it wasn't something that is intentional. We even made a suggestion that if possible, we propose another date for them, that we were waiting for them to give us a reply.
But be it as may, at least there's some assurance that's coming through from the Tertiary Education Commission. They're, in fact, first of all, not happy that you're walking away and expecting that there will be some negotiations on the matter. So will you call off the strike and get back to the negotiation table?
We will only do that when we have seen a positive response from government.
What's your definition really of a positive response? I guess looking at what the labor law requires, obviously you would have to first of all call off the industrial action and then engage. You're not willing to compromise on that. Why?
The assurances that you are talking of has been on the table all the time. Anytime we are on the negotiation table, you'll be hearing the assurance. But when it comes to the implementation of these assurances that we are discussing, that is where the issue is.
Prof, what's your take on that?
Honestly, I'm, a little bit disappointed in the approach that they have adopted. Because, you see, on the item of the wrong placement, I'm just giving you an example, that it was at the table that this issue was floated, and he, if you ask him, he will confirm that GTech backed them and said, no, this is in the interest of equity and fairness. This is how we must treat them. And Fair Wages says, okay, once GTech has mentioned this, we will have to do some background check. When we validate that, then we will scale that up. He knows about it. They asked for 2 weeks to be done. The 2 weeks was the middle of March. So it's not giving you assurances that we are not fulfilling. This has been done as we speak now. They had the data that they wanted. They validated it. They moved it on. If you had come to the meeting, you would hear that this is an urgent thing. Because of that, you've declared strike action. It's very, very urgent to you. So is it not possible that 5 or 6 of you could have come? If the rest could not have come, at least the 5 or 6 of you would have come to get the update. Right. But you're not coming to negotiate. You're just coming to get information, which would have informed your membership that, after all, the issues that you are, agitating about are really, non-issues.
And Prof, at least we are getting that update from you now, which we're grateful for. But beyond that, there's also the concern about academic activities. What interim measures are you likely to put in place? We understand that some examinations are likely to take off in the coming days or are already going on.
Yes, I think the examinations are ongoing. Thankfully, they haven't been disrupted. The main areas where the disruptions have taken place is in a couple of colleges. I wouldn't say majority. A few colleges where the teaching staff have been intimidated to stay away, and the principals are putting in place alternative arrangements for the needs of the students to be addressed. I'm hoping that, once Labour Commission invites us, we'll get this matter.
So you're giving you're giving the assurances to parents out there that academic activities will not be affected. The fear is that, looking at what happened with the UTAG strike, a similar activity may happen this time around. Are you giving an assurance to parents?
No. This is a completely different, what do they call it, issue altogether, and the dynamics are different. So we are not likely to face the UTAG kind of experience. The principals are putting alternative arrangements for at least the feeding to be dealt with. That's the main part of it. That angle will be covered. But I'm really hoping that the census people will get in touch and they see that this is, agitation that is really completely needless under the circumstances.
I'm grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us, Professor Mohammed Salifu, Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. Let's wrap up. Let me hear from you, Jonathan. So at least there's some leeway here. We know that the group is set to engage the Tertiary Commission in the coming days. What's your expectation going into those rounds of engagements?
Thank you very much. Our expectation as students is that CENSAC should not go to the table with an entrenched position. Though they have a point, but they should be able to compromise. And then government should also do the same so that the two can meet halfway and then the issue is solved as early as possible.
Okay. Well, I guess we don't have much time, but I'm grateful, Jonathan, that you've been able to join us. Let's hear from you also, Frederick, your take on this. Prof is assuring that at least something will be done. So will you turn up for the negotiations?
As I speak with you, tomorrow we'll be meeting the National Labour Commission. Fair Wages has summoned us, and we will be there to represent the CENSAC. Your
expectations?
My expectation that our request will be granted so that our members will have a better condition of service.
You don't seem to be happy about the assurances, at least we're hearing from Professor Salifu.
It's true. We've been hearing this all along, but when it comes to implementation, that is where the problem is. In fact, Prof have been very, very helpful when it comes to the issue of first degree. At Fair Wages, they have been very hesitant in reacting or responding to the issue of first degree issue.
So we'll see how that will pan out. I'm grateful that you've been able to join us, Frederick. Larry, I'll give you the last word on this. It appears that Larry, yes, precisely. Apologies for that. Just go ahead.
I think the words from Prof. are quite refreshing. We hope they go by their words. I also want to use the opportunity to plead with Sensak. You could hear from the voice of Mr. Frederick that he's not so happy with the responses of Prof. But let's just give this a try and then see how, because their strike after 1 week, if things are not resolved, are really going to affect. I've never seen Sensak members so serious about strike issue like this. You go across all the colleges and everyone is putting on red armband. Everything is gone silent. Like everyone is totally down. So the earlier we get this issue resolved, the earlier it affects all other areas of our colleges of education. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful, Larry, that you've been able to spend some time with us. So, Prof, we're grateful. Perhaps you want to say a few words before we wrap up.
Okay. So, as I was saying, I hope that they turn up at the Labour Commission and they appreciate, the due process that is required. And I'm sure when they sit around the table, they realize that, this was just something that was completely avoidable. I really worry, when you hear people saying, well, we've been involved in this conversation for long, promises, and, I don't like getting involved in processes like that because it's not really a reflection of what has happened. There are timelines, that issues that come up, we discuss the issues, and it takes time to get these things done. And we have resolved issues. So it's not as if we've been involved in an ending discussion. So there has to be good faith in the engagement when they come. And I'm sure when the goodwill is there, we'll get to some resolution.
Right then. Professor Salifu, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. We are keeping our eyes on a number of stories for you. In fact, the Electricity Company of Ghana has actually, as we are learning, put on hold its intended exercise to cut power supply to over 31 institutions, including Parliament House and the University of Ghana. These institutions collectively owe the Electricity Company of Ghana over 70 million cedis, and despite several reminders, ECG says they have failed to settle their debt. Here's a list that we've compiled for you, some of the heavily indebted organizations and institutions. You have the Ministry of Communications there, owing some amount of money, way over 5 million Ghana cedis. You have the United UNDP office also on that list. The Internal Audit Agency is there, the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence. And then we have the Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO, owing some 277,300 Ghana cedis. Then NITA, the National Information Technology Agency, is owing a little above 1 million Ghana cedis. But the University of Professional Studies here in Accra is on that list as well. And the list goes on. It's a tall list, but indications that we're getting from the state power distributor is that they had originally planned to embark on a disconnection exercise. And we can just, before we bring you the planned activities of ECG, the figures are there for you. So you can see it, Ministry of Communication, 5 million, over 5 million Ghana cedis. You have UNDP office also owing some 558,000 and beyond. We have Internal Audit Agency as well, 554,740 Ghana cedis. And the list goes on. You have the University of Professional Studies Accra also owing some 1,611,403 Ghana cedis. So it's one of the highest when it comes to this list. You find UPSA there as well. So that's the list for you. In fact, it's a tall list. There are about 31 institutions in all. So there you have it. The state power distributor, as we know, had originally planned to embark on a mass disconnection exercise today. However, it is emerging that some of these institutions are beginning to settle their debt. That's the indication we're getting from Mary Ashan. She's the Public Relations Officer of the Accra West region of ECG.
Notices, collecting notices last week. They have come up with us, we've had some agreements, and then also they have come to make some commitments. So we didn't go ahead with this connected because there's been some commitment on their part. So we are just hoping they will comply with the federal agreement that we have given them, so that we take our money and we also enjoy some life. So for now, there's no going to be any disconnecting because they have come up with some commitments. But we have also given them a payment plan to follow. So this is the update now.
Officially, that activity is on hold as we speak, and it appears that some persons have started settling their debts, but that's a huge amount. 70 million Ghana cedis. That's how much is owed the Electricity Company of Ghana. So how do we go about this, and what's the best strategy in addressing all of this? Dr. Yusuf Suleiman is an energy specialist. He joins us live on Zoom right now to assess the situation. Thank you, sir, for your time here on the Pulse. So are you satisfied that ECG says once the people are demonstrating some signs of paying back, there's no need to necessarily go ahead and do the disconnection exercise, which was scheduled to happen today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Blessed. Good afternoon to you and your channel's viewers in Ghana and across the globe. Yeah, I think this is refreshing. That is, if what ECG is putting out there is something to go by. If you look at the power sector, the entire power chain, electricity chain, we have three segments that are so much seamlessly linked to the extent that if there is any inefficiency within one, value chain, the cascading impact on the other value chains are dire. And dating back, let's say 2015 to 2016, thereabout, you remember what we went through with respect to distribution challenges and generation challenges. And then I think quite some, if you step back almost a year back, we had some challenges with respect to distribution. And transmission. For distribution has always been the main thing, because this is where the cash flows. And so if there's any problem within the distribution, to the extent that we're not able to recover whatever power that is given to that particular chain, the cascading impact on the entire chain will be dire. And so if what they are saying that people are now beginning to pay, I think it's welcoming one, and then we should, but it's early days yet, we cannot celebrate. We need to just stand by and watch and see how the situation unfolds.
Is it even feasible in the first place that this amount of money will be retrieved by the Electricity Company of Ghana, given the volumes, the share volume? 70 million cedis is not easy money, you agree? And some of these institutions are already state agencies which are already in debt. So that would create a big challenge for ECG going forward, isn't it?
Yes, that is very huge indeed. That amount of money is very huge. So I would have wished that ECG will come up with a timetable with respect to each SOE, the timeline that they are giving, when they are going to pay, and, the feasible plan that they have. Are they cogent? Are they something practicable? So that we'll see. My fear is, ECG and SOEs, they are all in one basket, blessed. And the problem is that we have an inherent inefficiencies within the operations of SOEs. If you look at the Sogah report that was released, there was phenomenal, and debt-ridden, almost a lot of them were debt-ridden, so the inefficiencies within the SOEs are quite dire, So we are looking at this, not an independent body. ECG is also an SOE, and most of these organizations are also SOE. So what our fear is, we just hope that we don't have any interference from, powerful hands that this disconnection should be stopped, or, this kind of exercises that they try to embark on should be stopped. If that's the case, then I don't think we're going to have the 70 million back. However, I think I just think it is fair to give ECG the benefit of that people are beginning to pay. How do we trace this? It is difficult to tell now. We just wait and see how the situation unfolds. But I would have wished that timelines were given,
right.
With cogent steps with respect to each of these agencies or establishment to see how they're going to settle the debt.
And expert opinions have been divided on this. Do we take a step back, retrieve all the funds before we make progress, or do we put interventions in place that will forestall the activities going forward, such instances where persons are not paying up their bills? What's your stance on this matter, particularly when we know that it's sharply divided? Some say go after the money, use that money to invest in ECG so they can make progress. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, my stand is simple. I think we need to, take advantage of technology. If you want to depend on human beings or human interventions on a whole lot of days, it's going to be very difficult. And I can tell you, and it's been challenging, since time immemorial, and not now, until the coming in of this, smart meters. So what we need to do is to come back and invest in technology so that there will not be any human intervention. Why don't you connect these SOEs to, smart meter system, just like the individual, we individuals are connected. If they are connected with smart meter system where there's no any intervention, if your credit runs out, you run out of credit, I think that should be the way to go. If you invest in technology to be able to, recover this money, other than following up manually or, physically as we're doing, it will help. So my take is that I think they should give them time, but there should be a clear-cut plan as to how they're going to, pay this. Bear in mind, most of them are critical institutions. Some of them are hospitals, and there is no way we can cut off power to that. However, some deterrents should be put in place, and close monitoring systems should be put in place to ensure that, whatever promises that are made, they are adhered to, and then timelines, feasible timelines that we can track. That if you are giving you this kind of time frame and you are unable to pay back, the punitive measures should be taken as in the form of disconnection.
Right, and just as we wrap up on this conversation, we know that, and I do recall that, for instance, there was a policy in place to try and install smart meters and prepaid meters for all government institutions. That project, well, has halted. It wasn't as successful as many would expect it would be. Would you expect that government resumes some considerations on that matter in terms of policy?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Government has to take the bull by the horn, and I can understand the inertia in this particular situation. They are afraid that, the kind of free space that individuals are not given, or, consumers are not given to operate, where if you are owing, it goes up immediately. And most of these institutions are also, critical institutions that they may not want power to go off. But if you want to follow that, I think it will be very difficult. So yes, I think I'm going to embrace that policy. And I think government of Ghana should look into it and then revitalize it to ensure that smart meters are put in all these areas. And I can tell you, it's only innovation and technology that can save most of these situations. And also, the other area that I would like to put in place is the fact that, is the point I mentioned first. SOEs and their way of operations is very complicated in a way because of potential interventions. So I always float the idea that why don't you think about a bit of privatization, bring in private sector, a serious private sector who will manage the situation, manage it efficiently. Not fully privatizing ECG, as I say, but you can bring in, partners who are going to be very serious in this situation, where probably if the government knows that I don't have so much, I have stake in it, but another person with a serious mind also has a stake. And then if decisions are made based on business-oriented principles, I believe we'll have a long way to go. And remember, I do mention that distribution is quite critical. If you cripple our distribution, then you can be sure that transmission and generation is going to be heavily impacted negatively.
Right. Dr. Yusuf Sulemana, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. He's an energy specialist. You're still watching The Pulse. Don't forget that when we return, we have a conversation on Ghana Post. Well, he's been appointed for 100 days now. How does Bai Sosai intend to turn around the fortunes of a company that is struggling to make profits? We'll hear the Ghana Post story here on The Pulse. Stay with us. And you're watching The Pulse. Now, there's a need for us also to break down the figures for you and look at the genesis of this matter. Some of the issues that are coming out of that interview, first of all, has got to do with fuel prices. Isaac Kofi Eje is with our research desk, joining me in studio now to help us understand what's happening. So, Isaac, run us through the figures as we have it now, the genesis point.
So,
yeah.
Just as you said, let's look at what is causing this whole problem. So let's start with Ghana.
Right.
So we know fuel prices right from January to April has gone up more than 40%. And then when fuel prices go up, what does it translate into? Transport fares will also go up. And when transport fares go up, it will have an impact on price of goods and services. So that's when you have your normal sachet water, cement, kinke, cocoa, and then tin tomatoes also, having an increase in terms of price. So that's why we are feeling this pinch. Now, the next slide, talks about inflation. Okay, so Blessed, right from December December 2021 to February 2022, you can see an upward trajectory when we look at the inflation figures. So right from 12.6% in December 2021 to 15.70% in February. So there was a rise even between January and February. Exactly. 2022. Exactly. So if you look at on the face of inflation alone, you could see an upward trajectory, and this is expected to to be felt in the normal markets with fuel prices and other things. Now, another bit we can also look at when you look at the next slide is the Russia-Ukraine tension. Okay, so these are external factors. Exactly. So this is an IMF figure we are looking at, an IMF chart we are looking at here. And the IMF is projecting that developing countries are to feel the pinch even more than developed countries in this Ukraine-Russia tension in terms of consumption, how much consumers spend on food. So when you look at advanced economies, for instance, they spend a little over 10% of their annual income on food. Latin America, they spend a little over 20%. Emerging Asia also 20%. Central and Eastern Europe 20%. But if you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, we spend 40% of our income every year, and that's where Ghana finds itself. So if anything should happen to fuel prices on the globe, Sub-Saharan African countries or developing economies are being projected to feel it, to feel the pinch more than even developed economies. So you can see rocketing, price of food items such as rice, corn, and then wheat on the international market. Just because so cereals are also affected, and we know that part of the inputs for K&K, for instance, is corn. Yeah. So obviously that will be affected. So we are not in this alone. Actually, we are not in this alone. But the bottom line is, just as I said, when you look at the next slide, the bottom line is that when it comes to eating expenses, as far as the Ukraine-Russia war is concerned, IMF is projecting that consumers in countries with lower income spend more on food and are most affected when those prices rise. So we find ourselves in a developing country, so we feel the pinch. Do we have any projections on how this may be going forward in terms of the forecast and what the experts are telling us? Going forward, we are still waiting for the inflation figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, but the Russia-Ukraine war is still in session, and then we are just hoping that calm is restored so that the economy will get back to its normal trajectory. Until then, it's still not, you can't really project because, there's still much of a uncertainty around the whole, global economy in terms of fuel prices, goods and services and other things. So we're doing 15.70. Are we likely to top at 16? Well, let's hope and see, and see the figures from Ghana. Isaac Kofi Eje, with our research desk, I'm grateful that you've been able to give us a background to this. This is The Pulse. Stay with us. We'll bring you some more stories shortly. Well, so there's a need for us to get expert opinions on this. Unfortunately, we're joined by Anthony Forson, who's one of the experts looking at the figures and why we're having a sharp rise in the prices of cereals particularly. He understands what's happening on the international market and how that's having a ripple effect on the prices of commodities, including cereals as well. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us. So what's your take on the complaints that we've unraveled in our Living Standard series?
Well,
yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
okay, so thank you very much, and very good evening to your cherished viewers. Yeah, so I'll be following the discussion, and there is a lot to attribute to the increase in the current grains and cereal price hikes. But primarily in Ghana, we have been having this challenge even before the COVID, and also before the Russian war. The Russian war has only affected the areas of agro inputs and also wheat. But when it comes to maize, we have had some very astronomical increase in the maize particularly, because I do remember somewhere around 2015, 2016, we were buying up 50 kg of maize around 45 to 48 cedis. But fast forward to 2020, that jumped to around 150. And as it stands now, we are buying maize around 160, 170 for the same 50 kg.
Right.
So it has been a multiplicity of challenges with regards to productivity, cost of inputs, skills of farmers, and also the climate change.
And looking at the data that we have, part of the reasons is being attributed to what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, when these issues come up, many are not able to break it down and take it at their own level as to how come a conflict that's happening far away, miles away from us, is impacting inflation here in Ghana. Yeah, Morrison?
Yes, I don't know if I can hear you well.
Yeah, yes. I was just talking about how sometimes you have a situation where many people are not able to reconcile the findings that we're getting, for instance, from the IMF and some other scientific data, pointing to the fact that, for instance, what's happening, external shocks, such as what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, is affecting what's happening to our inflation in the country. How are you able to break it down for the average Ghanaian to get the connection as to why we're seeing that sharp rise?
Yes, even before I do that, mostly we do follow data primarily from the United States Department for Agriculture. Okay. And if you look at their current database that was released yesterday, we're looking at the domestic corn production of between 2022 to 2023, which was forecasted to be at 2.5 million metric tons. If you look at their projections for us, based on our country figures, we're looking at about 7% low projection, even based on the 2021-2022 estimate of 2.7 metric tons. So corn production in Ghana is predominantly rain-fed and dependent. And the unfavorable weather forecast that has been announced by the Ghana Meteorological Services Authority also contributes, which I said climate change, contribute to the yields of this. And also, most of the farmers have also moved from producing maize to rice. And this is where I normally say that we do have a challenge as a country. What informs the farmer is the government making the right projections and making sure that the farmers are going according to the projections, because, I mean, we have more than 4 million smallholder farmer population in the country, and we do not inform them as to what the market derivatives are or the market demands are. So they produce what they think was the previous season was lacking or was selling higher. So there are a lot of things that's going to this, and this lies on the government coming up with very strategic framework that will, of course, help farmer population to decide how the country priority is going with regards to food security. So we need to have a very, maybe a well-balanced database, well-informed, that will help us to look at the market forces, look at the demands, both from livestock, factory, and also human consumption, and also exports. We need to juxtapose these 4 categories properly so that we'll be able to inform our commercial farmers and also smallholder farmers as to what they should produce this season, next season, and in the coming season. Because most of our farmers only produce primarily to feed themselves.
And I was just touching on the external factors as well. If you could just break down the connection for us. We're talking earlier about the external factors. We talked about the Russian-Ukraine war, and you were about drawing the linkages for us.
Yes. So with the external factors, we've seen prices of fuel going up astronomically in the past days due to the fact that we import a lot of crude oil from Russia and Ukraine. And that has affected the cost of transportation. And you know, in Ghana, when the food price, when transportation of fuel goes up, it affects everything across board. Now, if you look at that as well, another major reason we are not looking at is that Brazil and also Argentina has restricted the quantity of exports. And no one is looking at that. You see, these are the kind of projections government needs to be studying. They need to build an intelligence system across commodity areas. Now, with Ukraine, we have seen the effect of wheat. But let me say that the projected effect of wheat is not yet being felt, because as a country, we import more of our wheat from US rather than Ukraine and Russia. And also the derivatives of the wheat, such as the flour, the wheat flour and all that, are all not imported from Russia and Ukraine. So we are not feeling it. If you go to the areas of Turkey and Egypt, that depends primarily on import of wheat and other derivatives from Ukraine and Russia. Their prices have increased astronomically to about more than 60%. So this is the time we need to start looking at what are the mitigating effects. First, we need to adopt local content in some of the things that we do, which is highly important. We can adopt maize, we can adopt cassava flour, we can go for orange flesh sweet potato flour. So these are some of the things that we need to be looking at.
How about personal budgets as well? From the forecast that you have and the data that you're referring to, are you projecting that there'll be food inflation in the coming days?
Yeah, of course, because if the projections that we are looking at currently on my screen, there is a projection quite lower than we expected. We were expecting before the Russian war came in. And also the fact that most farmers this year would not be producing what they produced or the acreage they produced last year. If they did 10 acres, they may be doing either 7 or 5 as a result of the cost of inputs. Okay, because if you look at it, for instance, NPK have shot up from 180 to 360 to 400. Urea is getting close to 500 cedis, right? So these are high costs right now. What we need to be looking at as a country is we need to start going back to the fundamentals. Do you have a garden? If you have a garden, what does your family consume more? Cassava, pineapple, plantain, whatever you have, you think you consume more. You plant it, you populate it in your garden. There are other innovations. So, for instance, the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana is working around to come up with a public training across board in various training, especially using the sack farming to train people how to produce their own foodstuffs and also other vegetables and the likes. So we need to now looking at how we can use our own innovative skills, innovations and several others to produce what we can we eat. Otherwise, Operation Feed Yourself is in full swing.
That conversation here, Anthony Morrison, CEO for the Chamber of Agribusiness. Thank you for spending some time with us. Now, stakeholders in the fight against child marriage have commended the multimedia group for its impactful reportage of the phenomenon in the Ashanti region. At least 10 juveniles who were married off to men 3 times their age were saved through a collaboration between the Police Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, DOFSU, the traumatized victims, some of whom considered suicide to end their pains, were featured in the JoyNews hotline documentary child bride put together by Ohimini. The stakeholders, including UNICEF, DOFSU, and the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, say such initiatives go a long way towards improving the situation of the vulnerable in society. Ohimini has the rest of the story.
She was married off to a man in a country she doesn't know.
Ghana is home to over 2 million child brides. That is according to UNICEF. The Child Bride Project did not only investigate and rescue victims, but also ensured victims enrolled in school, while recalcitrant parents and relatives were prosecuted.
You've taken the lead, and let me congratulate you for taking the lead and for showing concern that yes, it's something that is dear to your heart. You recognize the problem and that you believe that you also need to do your part. I would request other media houses to do the same.
Ashanti Regional DOFSU Commander Superintendent Susanna Derry described the multimedia group's intervention as life-saving.
Multimedia, when they were involved in this, through their effort, we have gotten admission for some of the girls, and I'm specifically happy for this girl who was taken outside Ghana and she escaped, because she had then completed BEC and she was to go to SS and they took her away. You see, admissions and all that was almost done, but the multimedia was able to get, with their maybe networking, they were able to get a school, rescues that are done in the night. We cannot get social welfare to permit us to get to the shelter and all that. They are able to see some hoteliers who will offer to keep such victims.
UNICEF warns Ghana risk missing out on meeting the Sustainable Development Goal 5 of eliminating all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage by 2030. Joyce Odame is the Child Protection Officer at UNICEF, an international organization working in more than 190 countries to reach out to most disadvantaged children. She is enthused by the role played by the multimedia group in reaching out to disadvantaged children.
I must commend multimedia for demonstrating this kind of interest and commitment to this issue that is plaguing our country. Definitely the government alone cannot, do it.
For the president of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, the energy level of the multimedia group amazes her. Dr. Ruth Oswemji wants more of such initiatives from MGL.
I say a big kudos to multimedia. You do all. And when people sit somewhere, they may not even think about an issue like this. And sometimes I get amazed that people who are lay in terms of lay in the mental health sector would think deep about issues pertaining to mental health. It amazes me and actually impresses me, and it is a good work multimedia is doing.
The two-part Child Bride documentary has increased discussion on the issue, with a call from victims for more action to end the practice. From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Ohimini reporting.
Well, so let's stay on this for quite some time. Joining us via Zoom is Anthony Bediako Boateng, and he's the organizational. His organization actually supported in the prosecution of some recalcitrant parents by providing transportation to under-resourced DOFSU unit of the Ghana Police Service, among others. So let's try and understand what's happening in the area and also why he's embarking on that project. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. So, looking at what's happening in the Ashanti region, are you poised to continue with your campaign?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yes, we are poised as an NGO. Actually, the name of our NGO is Abuse Relief Corps, and we provide support to victims of sexual abuse and abuse in general. And the incidence of child marriage is especially on the rise in Ashanti region, in particular areas, around Sogah and some of these areas. And it's something that as an NGO, though we look mainly to sexual abuse, issues of child marriage is also something that is very dear to our hearts, and we're committed for the long haul to assist with such cases.
What are your findings telling you about how bad the situation is in the Ashanti region?
So generally, we know that the reported figures are not the exact ones, but then we can understand that 1 out of 5 children, in certain areas are likely to face this issue of child marriage. So that it means that for every 5 girls that you meet, 1 of them is likely to be sent off as a child bride. And in the long term, we can see that and the quantum of girls who are going to be denied education, who in the long term are also going to become a burden onto the husband, the society, and the nation as a whole.
What's the next line of action for your relief corps?
So we believe that we'll continue with the education, because education is very paramount, partnering with multimedia as we're doing now. And I think since the documentary aired, that discussion has indeed increased, and a lot of people are becoming more aware of these issues. So education is really the way to go, and then partnering with stakeholders, like DOFSU, with social welfare and all the other institutions to take the necessary steps. So intensify the education and also ensure that, reported cases or perpetrators that are arrested face prosecution, and it serves as a big deterrent to others.
Anthony, grateful that you've been able to join us. Ohiming Teria, who is at the center of this innovative piece, is also here with us. Ohiming, so here we are, we're understanding that the Relief Corps is intending to scale up its efforts. What more findings have you been making after this documentary?
Thank you. The issue of child marriage is very prevalent in the Ashanti region, especially in Kumasi and Asokore-Mampong municipal areas. One would have thought that in the eve of government introducing free senior high school and encouraging more children to go to school, the issue of child marriage wouldn't have cropped up in the region. But indeed, it is happening. Not in any other remote area in the region, but in the Kumasi metropolitan area, as well as Asokore-Mampong municipal and other cosmopolitan areas within the Ashanti region. It's an issue that affects many minors because minors are not given the opportunity to decide on their future. What it means is that a child could return from school, and in the next minute or two, the parents will tell this particular minor that you've been given, your hand into marriage. So what you need to do is to prepare for this journey. It comes as shock, and in most instances, the victims are traumatized. There are many instances where the victims choose their education over such a relationship, but they don't have that opportunity to decide. And at the end of the day, they are told that disobeying your parents is something that is against the will of God. So they are coerced and they are forced to live to the wills and the demands of their parents or relatives. So in Kumasi and Asokore-Mampong, I must say, is very prevalent, but a lot goes into investigating and also rescuing these minors who, over time, with this project, we managed to rescue 10 of them, some as young as 10 years, and then the oldest being 15 years in that regard.
And I must congratulate you for the work that you've done, but I'm sure that that's not the end of the story. Even some of the victims, as we understand, you're still monitoring their activities as well. What do you gather about their state of mind and how, for instance, DOFSU is liaising with parents to support them?
Yes, sir. With the support of DOFSU, we targeted the minors, investigated them, and investigations into this practice is a Herculean task, I must admit. Sometimes one child
rescuing one child could take about a month or 2 or 3, because you need to monitor the situation. And because police needed evidence to support whatever investigations and prosecutions that they wanted to embark on, we needed to establish the fact. For instance, as when the child is being married or when the marriage ceremony is going on, that is when police, investigators will come and then do the rescue exercise. Beyond that, it's not just a matter of rescuing them. We've went a step further by enrolling the victims, some who were in JHS and others who were about to enter senior high school in schools, and provided them with their basic needs. So, for instance, at the time that even SHS admission had closed, we worked, in collaboration with the Free Senior High School Secretariat, who supported us in this project. So, all the victims, those who were to be admitted into senior high school, were admitted, and we provided them their personal belongings that will aid their education, and then they are continuing with their education. The good news is that most of the recalcitrant parents were also convicted. Some were convicted 24 months and others 12 months. So the court also ordered that with the support of DOFSU, anytime any of these victims leave school, provided, for instance, if they are on vacation, then it is DOFSU officials or the DOFSU commander who will go to the school, pick them and send them to their homes. And there are others who are still doing well in shelters provided by the Social Welfare Department. So it's been a Herculean project, a task of rescuing and also bringing life to these victims who are mostly traumatized. There are instances, some of them were sent to countries outside Ghana and married off to men who were 3 times their age. Some managed to escape, and when they even got back to Ghana, their relatives were still planning to send them back after enduring sexual abuses and all that. So you can imagine the kind of trauma, the kind of molestation these minors have gone through, all in the name of child marriage.
Ohemin Teria, thank you for joining us on The Pulse. Now, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is expecting the National Youth Volunteerism Program will contribute significantly to the country's GDP and ultimately enhance national development. He believes the community-based initiative would afford the youth the opportunity for skills development and promote an active citizenry for national development. There's more in the following report.
National Youth Volunteering Program in Kumasi, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia acknowledged the formal employment sector cannot solely drive national development, as only a fraction of the youth find themselves in the sector. He therefore believes with the establishment of the volunteer program, Ghana could record a significant percentage of GDP as proven by data in other countries.
We have to recognize that it's not only through formal employment that we can get the things that we need done. And this is why the spirit of volunteerism comes in. And the data, the estimates that has been made, a very active volunteerism taking place, that volunteerism can contribute as much as 2.4% of a country's GDP. That is huge. That is huge. So I think that it is very, very important for us as a country to implement this National Youth Volunteer Program.
The National Youth Volunteering Program aims at empowering above 100,000 Ghanaian youth over the next 5 years of its implementation. The community-based initiative is in line with the government's agenda of achieving the sustainable development goals for local and national transformation. A representative of the Asantehene, Nana Ade Jamra I, enjoined the government to implement employment strategies that would ignite a sense of patriotism among the youth.
If we indeed succeed in establishing a new set of principles or guidelines to promote volunteerism and make it attractive the entire nation stands to benefit. This launch should mark a reawakening of the sense of patriotism in our youth. Distinguished guests, the issue of youth unemployment is well known to us all, so I would like to use this occasion to urge our youth to actively partake in this program, as volunteerism can be a viable option to battle unemployment.
The volunteerism program, which is being implemented by the National Youth Authority, is under the theme Mobilizing Youthful Hearts for Volunteer Services in National Development. Pius Enam Hajide is the Chief Executive Officer.
Today, we begin the process of mobilizing youthful hearts for volunteer service in national development. We have embarked on this process because we believe that lodged deep in the heart of the Ghanaian youth is a desire to see this country prosper and a zest to partake in the action which will bring about that prosperity.
For JoyNews, Emmanuel Bright-Kweku reporting.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. We return shortly after this break. Please stay. Well, so you're welcome back to The Pulse, and this very gentleman we're talking about has promised to turn the tide of an institution that is grappling to keep up and make more profit. But today, he spent about 100 days in office after being appointed by the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to try and make a change at Ghana Post. So what is the plan of Vice Osei Akufo to change the fortunes of the state corporation? Well, the gentleman is here in studio with us. Oh, well, welcome.
Yeah, my brother.
It's good to see you.
Great to see you.
How's public service treating you?
I know. It
feels different, I guess.
Very, very different. A lot of work, a lot of early morning waking ups. I mean, we have to make it, you have to get it going.
Right. It feels almost like a studio, right?
I'm telling you.
Need to mix things up. Anyway, but let's talk about Ghana Post, because you are on an agenda, and just yesterday you were giving a new fleet by the Communications Ministry, which is to augment your activities. And you've promised there that you will change the fortunes of the company. What's the grand plan of avoiding changing Ghana Post?
Thank you very much. So yesterday's occasion, the Communication Minister outdoored Ghana Post's own fleet. So it's actually not somebody it's Ghana Post money and Ghana Post arrangement. Just that, of course, that's our sector minister, so she had to come and do it with us. But the plan is to move Ghana Post from an organization that is struggling to an organization that becomes a dividend-paying organization to Ghana as a country. And so one of our key dreams is to become financially independent. We have the potential. It just needs the right energies, the right support base, and we can do it. And those are the buttons we are pressing. I mean, in this modern age, COVID has made it clear that the delivery and courier business is an area that is huge. There's a big market in that space. And Ghana Post needs to play its right role. I mean, currently, in the courier business, we are behind the likes of DHL, the likes of other major courier brands. But it's a space that we must own.
Right.
And so we are on a mission to own that space, at least 50% of the market share in that area.
And that's why many find your goal as very ambitious, particularly when this is not a good time for business. But
I agree.
Because of the COVID-19 pandemic and some other external shocks. But what's your priority in getting Ghana Post back? Well, what would be that key thing that should be on the lookout for us?
So our key priority areas is to work on the people, because what Ghana Post has is we have people and we have assets. Now, if you are able to get the people motivated well enough, then they will treat every package or everything they have to do with a certain attitude. And so key on our agenda is working on the people so that they can take great use, can make maximum use of our asset base, from our vehicles, from our motorcycles, everything we have at our disposal, our offices, our 360 branches across the country. How do we make use of them so that we can maximize profit and get the organization to become profitable? And these are key in our 3-year strategic plan that we are rolling out.
And we'll certainly be on the lookout for that. But we also know that your financial position is not too well. This is a time where, of course, the state interest and governance authorities releasing reports about state corporations and complaining about the fact that most of you are not able to utilize your assets properly. I mean, is that of concern to you?
It is.
Having looked at the report, and what are the lessons you're picking up, and how do you intend to leverage on that to improve Ghana Post? Okay,
so you've asked a very important question, but again, Ghana Post is a limited liability company. Right. So what it means is from 1994, when Ghana Post became a limited liability company, government is no longer subventing Ghana Post. Okay. That's why
They're totally off.
Totally off. Right. We are not subvented by Ghana. So Ghana Post works to pay itself, works to grow itself. And it's been, running an organization that has a staff strength of close to 2,000, it's not an easy task. So I understand the challenges. That's why Ghana Post has that poor financial position. But again, with its asset base, even though you have all this asset base, because you are not the shareholder, the laws are clear that when it comes to assets, we either disposing of, either entering into partnerships, joint venture, the shareholder must always be consulted. And we all know what happens when government has to make decisions. And so that has become quite a challenge. And I'm happy we have a new public enterprises minister who is dynamic, who is not interested in making government assets sit and deteriorate at the expense of making use of it that can benefit the organization. And so we are very willing to work closely with the Ministry of Public Enterprises, of course with our sector ministry, to make use of the asset base of Ghana Post so that we can leverage on our assets and even put us at the right financial
So what you're telling us is that as of now, Ghana Post is not facing similar challenges elsewhere in other state corporations. You're able to keep up with your operational cost and also wean yourself totally away from government subventions. Is that the case?
Since 1994. I mean, of course, that's why Ghana Post has its fair share of challenges. I mean, so definitely we would have a few. We have some end of service benefits owed to our employees because there have been times that you don't have the means. But that doesn't mean you are not afloat. It doesn't mean you don't have the cash flow. I mean, since I took office at Ghana Post, we are able to do what we are able to do.
And what's your biggest challenge now there?
I think the biggest challenge that we are facing is working in a competitive industry, but being regulated strictly by government processes. So for instance, at Ghana Post, if I get a new contract right now and somebody wants me to bring 100 motorbikes to do some distribution for them. To buy this 100 motorbikes, Ghana Post has to go to PPA. You have to write to PPA. PPA has to sit once a month to give you approval, to even bring people to now come and tender. Right. So that whole process of, sometimes it takes about 3 months. By the time you come back, your competitors have gone with that business. They are running with that business. And so that is immediately the key challenge that we face, because our business is so competitive that you need to make decisions on the spot. But because you are operating under certain public financial management, certain public procurement management setup, you are unable to have that speed. And those are among the key things we hope to change. I mean, immediately we're able to win ourselves from that. I think we'll be better placed to participate fully and take control of our own destiny, and we can move.
How different are your services now? Because some say, well, if we talk about Ghana Post, is this age-old postal service delivery, and that's all we know about. Have you added on some new services that are compelling enough and competing enough in the market?
I mean, what Ghanaians should agree and understand is, with the whole digitalization drive, where Ghana Post had to come up with a Ghana Post GPS, where we did the digital addressing system, it put us at a certain advantage. That assisted Ghana Post in digitizing its services. So now a lot of things that we used to do manually, we do them digitally. And our whole post offices, all our 360 post offices, out of the 360, about 320 are networked on our enterprise software, where we do this digitally, and it's networked and everything works. So now we speak to ourselves more easily than before. So packages that would have in the past taken 5 days to be delivered are being delivered in 24 hours. Packages that would have taken 2 weeks are being done in 3 days. We have improved our services. So a typical service like EMS has gone through a lot of changes. Now there's proof of delivery. There's communication with the sender throughout the whole process chain. And so once your item is entered, you receive a text message. Once it's dispatched, it reaches the destination. Once the person receives it, you get a message. So the track and trace system has gotten better. A typical service like SpeedLink, where you pick and you drop off, it has been improved. I mean, the response time on SpeedLink now, anywhere within the city that you decide to use SpeedLink, in under an hour, we should be able to be at your service and deliver your service.
Amazing. But Ghana Post, the GPS system is something that we're very much interested in, particularly because of the, the
digital addressing
system and all of that. But from your desk and looking at the figures and also the dynamics, what are you able to say about the public reception of the digital address system?
I think the public have embraced it quite well.
Are you setting up?
Yeah, no, they've embraced it quite well. I mean, when you look at the Ghana Post GPS, the downloads on it, if you're using the back end to even speak, I mean, more than 16 million people have accessed the system and tried to use the system. That alone shows how many ones will make 16 million. So that is some good news for us. And then the fact that government has embraced it, the MMDCs have embraced it. Now there's the National Property Addressing System, which is running on the backs of the addresses that the GPS created. So that is also a plus for us. I mean, what we are looking at is moving that into a national digital address register, which will sit with us so that people can do confirmation of addresses. I mean, if somebody is opening an account at a bank and he says, I live here, how does the bank confirm, apart from riding behind them or following them to go and do a check? Now, with that digital property addressing register, you can sit at the comfort of your place, wherever you are, and assess that register that the person sees.
What's the status of that project?
It's something that's ongoing. There's a partnership between us and the Statistical Service, because Statistical Service also had the pictures of the house, the homes, and we have the data on the digital addressing. So it's a partnership that we are doing.
Because we don't have much time, but if it's ready, how will it be looking like? Is it a register that will be an online, give you a picture of someone's home?
Yes, it's a register that will give you a picture of someone's home. You see the home, you see the address of the home, and so you confirm it that really and truly this is where the person lives. And with the statistic, the data, the census we did, every home, they will ask how many people live in that home. And it says that when you change homes, you must inform the service. This is going to get this country on a certain digital space where you can actually track people's movement. It's in line with the whole system of integrating security, biometrics, and making sure that people are responsible for whatever they do. It's a national security issue.
I just hope that you're not losing sight of the issue of data protection as well.
No, we are signed on it, though. I mean, I understand there will be, everything will have extremes, but I mean, we all live in a certain country, and definitely there must be some form of laws that must guide us.
Interesting. You've spent 100 days in office, and that's the note on which we need to wrap up.
I know.
Your personal reflection about this appointment, and mind you, you're also a politician as well. Are you now convinced that private sector is what it is for you, or you would make much more endeavors to go into the political offices that you were seeking earlier to enter?
I mean, now I'm in public sector, and that's where my focus, that's where my energy is. I'm quite passionate about this Ghana Post job because it's challenging. I mean, anything that gets you to get gray hair in under 2 months is important. It's something you must pay attention to. And I think it has so much potential that needs attention, and I could share that success story as part of my success. You know, so I'm focused on working with Ghana Post. It's been revealing. I mean, it has great people, it has great potential, and it's in a competitive space. The most important thing is for Ghana, the general Ghanaian public, to forgive Ghana Post of old and accept the new Ghana Post. Give it a try so that together we can change the fortunes of the organization.
Because I'm giving you 30 seconds. This is a personal question. Are you giving up on the political aspirations and on music as well, briefly, as we wrap up?
I mean, music is on break. I would never give up on music. So
So you could go back to music?
Definitely. I mean, Nana Mpedu sang till he was 76. Right. How old am I? I'm still a very young guy, and I'm still creating music. So music, I'm on a long break. Maybe, who knows, when I'll come back. And then on the political, it's quite early. Now I'm in public service. And of course, once you are in public sector, there are certain things that guide your operations. You know, but of course, there have been several people who have been in public sector who have still pursued their political dreams. So I don't know. Once the time comes, we will decide.
You never say never. Bye, Sosei Kufu. I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. That's a ball for you running Ghana Post and turning the tide. We wait to see what then will be the fortunes of Ghana Post in the coming days. But that will be all for the polls. My name is Blessed Sogah. Don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates on our stories for you there. Please stay.